The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
Saquon Barkley is now the highest paid running back in NFL history. The Philadelphia Eagles agreeing to a 2-year extension with their top running back. $41.2 million in total potential earnings, $36 million guaranteed, $20+ million a year for number 26. What an incredible story. It's why I love the NFL. If you would have told me a year ago that Howie Roseman, not that he would pay a running back historic money like this, more money than a running back has ever gotten, but if you would have just said Howie Roseman was going to pay a running back any contract that wasn't a 1-year league minimum type of deal, I would have said you're crazy. 365 days later, he has made a running back the highest paid player at his position ever. But that's what makes Howie Roseman so great, is that he is constantly changing his philosophies as he has presented new evidence that says this is now the way to go in the NFL. The league is zigging this way, you should zag that way. And it helped him win a championship. It was the main reason the Eagles won a Super Bowl in 2024, bringing in Saquon Barkley. And I think this is maybe the best move that Howie Roseman has ever made in his career, signing Saquon Barkley. What an amazing story for a player that was lost with a bad team, for a position at running back that has been chewed up and spit out by this league for over a decade, used after rookie contracts. Nobody, even the best of the best, can't get paid. You look at even back in the day, Le'Veon Bell holding out for an entire year because he want to get paid what he's worth, and he can't get the contract no matter what. For a team in the Eagles that never, like I said, that never liked to invest in this position, for it to result in a Super Bowl in 2024 that a running back carried you to, you beat, by the way, a dynasty looking for a three-peat that was led by a quarterback. And yes, Jalen Hurts is the reason you won the game, Super Bowl 59. But who was the main reason you won the Super Bowl from an entirety perspective? The entire season, the playoffs, the Super Bowl as a whole. It was Saquon Barkley. For somebody to do that at this position in 2024, it's amazing. But Saquon Barkley, like, I still don't believe if you're building a contender that you should consistently invest first, second-round picks, top contracts in the running back position. Like, I don't think after Saquon Barkley, the Eagles should stick with this strategy either. But this is a unique story. It was unique circumstances where it was the perfect player at the perfect time. Like, this isn't, I don't like calling Saquon Barkley a running back. This isn't just any running back. This is a generational, historic offensive weapon that is already one of the best team leaders as well in Eagles history. This is a player that had the single greatest season a running back has ever had in 2024, breaking Terrell Davis's record for the most yards when you combine the regular season and the playoffs. Like, this isn't just any running back. This is one of the greatest running backs of all time. This is a running back that you could consistently rely on to rip off 20-plus yard plays, 30, 40, heck, even 60, 70-plus yard touchdowns like he was Deshaun Jackson, but he's in the backfield. Like, that is who Saquon Barkley was in 2024. This was a guy that in the fourth quarter of one-score games, you could always rely on to be the guy that makes the play to win the game. He was, if you even combine quarterbacks into this equation, into this conversation, Saquon Barkley was the best fourth quarter player in all of football this year. So yes, this was the perfect time and the perfect player to finally invest in this position. It was just the perfect player, and like I said, it was the perfect time. Like, you needed this piece to get over the hump. Right? When you look at what happened in 2023, the collapse, when you look at the 2-2 start this year, all the chaos and drama surrounding that heading into the bye week, do you think that you recover from that collapse in this year's drama without Saquon Barkley carrying you after the bye week? Do you think that his new, fresh leadership, do you think without that, the Eagles win a championship? Do you think they even make it to the playoffs or win playoff games? let alone win a championship without Saquon Barkley? I'm not so sure. It was the perfect time for where this team was from a roster perspective, but it was also the right time because when you look at the NFL, like I said, this position has been chewed up and swallowed, spit out, I should say, for a decade plus, where there was just a massive overcorrection of this position. Nobody was paying running backs. Almost nobody was even drafting them high. Like, there's only been a couple players that have been taken in the first round at running back in the last decade. You got Saquon Barkley. Like, this was such an overcorrection, such a market inefficiency that you got Saquon Barkley, one of the greatest players in NFL history, for the price of Darnell Mooney and Gabriel Davis. Like, that is unbelievable. And I think contenders are going to see not just what the Eagles did, but what the Ravens did with Derrick Henry, what the Packers did with Josh Jacobs, what the Texans did with Joe Mixon. Contenders are going to see, like, not everyone should do this, but contenders are going to see what these teams did, taking advantage of a market inefficiency, getting a star player for a bargain rate because of their position, and I think they're going to try to replicate it as their final piece to win a Super Bowl. But the problem is, like Howie Roseman has said before, if you're copying a team, odds are you're too late, and there's another way to do things. And the Eagles with Saquon Barkley, again, they struck at the right time. This was a good time to make this your first time going all in at the running back position. I, again, think this is the greatest move that Howie Roseman has ever made in his entire career. And that involves trading up for Carson Wentz, signing Nick Foles in free agency. Howie has made some incredible moves, drafting Jalen Hurts in the second round. Yeah, again, without Jalen Hurts, like, that's your quarterback. He's the main reason for this golden era of Eagles football. But Saquon Barkley was the missing piece. He was the difference between losing a Super Bowl, making the playoffs, but winning a championship. That's the difference. Saquon Barkley was the guy to put you over the top. And how awesome of a story is it to see a running back have that kind of impact on a championship team in 2024. And like I said, beat a dynasty that was led by one of the top two greatest quarterbacks of all time. I mean, that is a big win for running backs out there. It's one of the coolest stories that you'll see in sports. And now, to make this contract worth it, though, you're going to have to make sure Saquon Barkley stays healthy. Again, $41.2 million in total earnings, $36 million in guarantees, $20+ million a year for his annual salary. If you want to make this contract not be about what he's done for you, but what he's going to do, the Eagles need to make sure that Saquon stays healthy for the stretch run of 2025, for the stretch run of 2026. They need to add more balance, I think, in this offense. Even though the offense should still run through Saquon Barkley in 2025. Play him until the wheels come off. Now, he is not on I think he's still underpaid for the impact he has on this team, but he is not on a Gabriel Davis, Darnell Mooney-like contract anymore where he's getting paid like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. No, now he got the bag. Like, we knew after that Super Bowl season, he was going to want a new extension. Like, this was a matter of time. This was going to happen at some point this offseason. Now that he is paid like a star, regardless of position, now they need to make sure, though, that he stays healthy for the games that matter the most. So you're going to use him a lot next year. You should still be a run-first offense, but you can't have him take on the historic usage rate that he had in 2024. He cannot have that many carries, that many touches in 2025 as well. And this is a physical cyborg. Like, Saquon Barkley, you build this kind of guy in a lab when it comes to his health, his athleticism, the way he takes care of his body. The usage, the punishment that he was able to take last year is unbelievable. I can't believe he made it through the entire season. But at the same time, he's an aging running back that does have an injury history. You need him for the most important moments of the season, late in December, January, potentially in February, in playoff games, the biggest games of the year. I do want them to get back to a more balanced approach in 2025. Not saying it has to be 50-50 in favor of, not saying it's got to be 70-30 in favor of the pass, but I do think it has to be more balanced than last year where the Eagles threw the football fewer than any team in the NFL. So I think that's the main thing that I think has to happen in 2025, be more balanced. But I think Saquon Barkley was worth it. It's crazy to say this about a running back getting paid historic money, considering what we know about roster building in the NFL. But again, Saquon Barkley is not just any running back. This is a generational player that carried you to a championship, and I think he can do it again. He was worth every penny of this contract.
Bucks beat the Mavericks in Big D just a few days ago and look to finish the job at home. The Bucks played last night against the Hawks and won. They are 9.5-point favorites right now. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Saquon Barkley became the highest paid running back in NFL history on Tuesday.
So the Philadelphia Eagles just made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history, agreeing to a 2-year contract extension worth over $41 million, $20 a year annually, over $20 million a year, $36 million guaranteed. What an insane time to be an Eagles fan. A year ago today, you would have said there's never a chance Howie Roseman would ever pay a running back anything that's worth over a 1-year minimum contract. And now he makes a running back the highest paid player at his position ever. But it's a really cool story. And again, it's proof that
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast.
Davante Adams is out and ready to be scooped up. Though the reporting, and this has been the reporting for quite some time now, going back to the Super Bowl, that he would prefer to play on the West Coast. When it was reported by Ian Rappaport that he was going to be released or going to be traded, it was when he was going to be released. He reiterated, Rappaport did, that the pull of playing on the West Coast is real. And unfortunately for the Packers, and we talked about this, about why you would want to trade for him, is the 49ers could use a receiver. Now, we have reporting that Adam Schefter saying Brandon Ayuk, even after trading Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk potentially gettable in a trade. Interesting. The Chargers are a perfect Davante Adams team. Lam McConkey had a terrific rookie season, but he is really more of a slot receiver. You get a boundary, ball-winning, do-everything number one receiver to go with Ladd McConkey. That is a terrific combination for the LA Chargers. And then the Rams, they're loaded for bear now. They're going to trade Cooper Kupp. You bring in Davante Adams. He can play in the slot, knows at least a variation of this offense, has played certainly with big arm quarterbacks. That is a perfect fit too. For all of those reasons, I advocated for the Packers to make a move, give up some draft capital to get Davante Adams. Now, what is interesting about this, though, is the Jets released him, which means he can be signed right away. No new league year, none of that. And will not count against the comp pick formula for the team that acquires him. So if the Packers were to sign him and then acquire, these other pieces, the Adams part does not count against them in their comp pick formula. So if Josh Myers gets signed to a big deal, a $10 million, the John Runyon Jr. deal, they could sign a corner that's offset. Well, the Adams money wouldn't count. It's free in the compensation part of this. You still got to pay it, of course. Now, what I said when we first heard that Davante Adams wanted to be on the West Coast was I thought it was interesting. I still think it's interesting that the reporting of that came out simultaneous to the strongest push being made from the Packers organizationally, from the players in public, from Davante Adams himself going on K Adams, Davante Adams posting his green and yellow sneakers, the cryptic connections to the Packers saying he was open to a reunion. Then Tom Silverstein reported he was open to a reunion. And then we get he likes to play on the West Coast. That felt coordinated to me. The fact that Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter had it within 24 hours of one another, suggests to me that that was a coordinated attempt to create a little bit of leverage. And here is the question that I would like to ask Davante himself. What do you want your legacy to be? Do you want it to be that you were a mercenary at the end of your career, that you left Jordan Love to go play with Derek Carr, your former Fresno State teammate? That ends up in disaster. Now, you got your money. You got a time in Las Vegas. You got to be closer to your family. You expand your own beautiful family. And I totally understand the reasons for that. That goes terribly wrong for reasons completely out of your control, Davante Adams. Then you follow Aaron Rodgers to New York into a irredeemable situation, it turns out. You get a coach and a GM fired. That goes horribly wrong, again, for reasons outside of your control. What do you want your legacy to be? That you made this bad decision and then another bad decision, and then at the end of your career, you tried to right that wrong by going and playing in California with Justin Herbert, chasing a ring there? Or do you want it to be that you came back to where your career started? You right the wrong of misunderstanding or misevaluating Jordan Love and say, I'm going to finish what I started in Green Bay, the team that drafted me, that believed in me. I understand that the end was not what you wanted it to be, and that you didn't get the respect and the money that you, not even you felt you deserved, though you did feel that way, that you rightfully deserved. The Packers handled that situation poorly. And I hope, for Davante's sake, the Packers are willing to come to him and say, look, we screwed this up. We should have never let you leave. Let's compensate you. You should finish your career as a Packer. Let's go win a Super Bowl. Isn't that a better ending to your career than going to be a Charger, than going to be a Ram, especially than going to be a 49er? I mean, that's like, that is anathema to being a competitor. And I'm not saying Davante Adams is scared to compete. I'm saying that move is just kind of weak. It's just kind of weak. Wouldn't you rather come back to Green Bay, be the guy that lifts this team, and then you get the credit? This is not Aaron Rodgers. Because if you guys would have won in 2020, won in 2021, you know who would have got the credit? Aaron Rodgers. But if you come back to Green Bay and you can go win a Super Bowl, you will get the credit. You will be the guy that came back and finished what he started. The prodigal son returns. You will be a conquering hero in Green Bay, a folk hero for life in Green Bay, and there is not a better place to write your name in the history books than the most historic franchise in the National Football League. This is your opportunity to cement yourself as one of the all-time greats, one of the all-time Packers, to be sure, and to lead this young group into the next phase of development for this Packers team, to be the bridge to this next great Packers run. You can do that, Davante Adams. Other people may not believe you are still that quality of player. I do, because I'm old enough to remember what happened last year when you almost single-handedly beat the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best teams in the league. I know you can still impact games that way. Where do you want to do that? What do you want it to mean? It will not mean as much anywhere else as it will in Green Bay. The Bucs beat the Mavericks in Big D just a few days ago and look to finish the job at home. The Bucs played last night against the Hawks and won. They are 9.5-point favorites right now. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Saquon Barkley became the highest paid running back in NFL history on Tuesday.
So the Philadelphia Eagles just made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history, agreeing to a 2-year contract extension worth over $41 million, $20 a year annually, over $20 million a year, $36 million guaranteed. What an insane time to be an Eagles fan. A year ago today, you would have said there's never a chance Howie Roseman would ever pay a running back anything that's worth over a 1-year minimum contract. And now he makes a running back the highest paid player at his position ever. But it's a really cool story. And again, it's proof that
the Vikings might still be open to just a true blue extension. What would that look like?
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast.
It has been an interesting couple of weeks on Sam Darnold Watch. What are the Vikings going to do with the belle of the ball in free agency? They've got the guy that figures to make the most of the whole class by virtue of his position and playing pretty well at it this year. Lots of talk about a tag and trade. Why didn't they do that? If you're curious, I talked about that at length on yesterday's episode, as well as a whole bunch of other things in a mailbag. So go listen to that. But long story short, logistically, it wasn't as feasible as you think to pull it off. Actually tagging and trading him doesn't just mean you click 2 buttons like you're in Madden franchise mode. You need a lot of different people to cooperate with you, and they don't necessarily have a reason to, and you're also on a very tight timeline. So not very easy. Definitely not. Maybe you would even argue not doable. So they didn't want to risk it. I personally think that it would have been very unwise to go for. So I'm pretty happy to see that they showed restraint there. A lot of you disagree. It is what it is. It's over. But after the tag deadline passed, the reporting from both local and national beats has shifted. And everyone is using very vague language. They're open to working something out. Both sides are maybe going to come to a deal. Here is what I understand, and I'm kind of pulling nuggets from, combine reports, from postseason reports, from, recent reports, stuff like Access Vikings and the Star Tribune, NFL Network stuff, the more mainstream ways of getting Vikings information over a long time. So if you're missing, if you've been missing stuff and you want to catch up, here's what I understand the situation to be. Sam Darnold likes it in Minnesota, and he likes it enough in Minnesota to be very much interested in staying if the price is right, if a deal gets done. But it's a business, and here's the thing about where Sam Darnold is at. Think about his career. He has been a bust. He has been a reclamation project. He has been paid like a backup or a rookie. He has not really made big money in the NFL, at least not by NFL standards. But here he is with a chance to do that. He's hitting free agency, coming off a 14-win season, looking to make market quarterback money. What is market quarterback money? It seems like part of the reason the Vikings did not want to tag him was because $41 million is too much for Sam Darnold, not just for the Vikings, but for teams potentially trading for him. That is a point that Ben Gessling has brought up, and it's a point that Ian Rappaport brought up. So there's a local and a national angle on it, both kind of saying the same thing. That the problem with Sam Darnold's market wasn't that teams aren't interested in Sam Darnold. They very much are. And a lot of people are like, why don't you think teams would want to trade for Sam Darnold? Teams want to acquire Sam Darnold, but they want to have a say in how much he's making. And if he's starting at 41 mil, that would be what the tag is. Teams are way less interested in that, and the juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze. So that kind of tells us what a Sam Darnold extension would look like. He would be making less than that, significantly less enough that it makes the whole tag and trade bonanza thing not even worth engaging in. So to me, that tells me that Sam Darnold's maybe going to make more like $30 million a year. Call it the Baker Mayfield deal. The Baker Mayfield deal 2 years later looks a lot worse. Not the way his contract has scaled. I don't have anything to say about that. But rather, if you sign a $30 million a year deal now, it looks worse than a $30 million a year deal looked if you signed it back in 2022 or whenever Baker Mayfield did, because the cap has exploded so much, $30 million doesn't go quite as far. All that is to say, Darnold might be in more of a Geno Smith contract territory. If you adjust those contracts for the current cap environment, that is to say, look at the percentage of cap in the year they signed and then see what that percentage of cap would be this year. If you want to say Sam Darnold's going to make about Geno Smith money, that's $30 million now. If you want to say he's going to make about Baker Mayfield money, that would be like $36 million now. So somewhere in there, it would be my guess, somewhere between 30 and 36, evidenced by the fact that 41 was too steep for everybody. And we know this to be the case. We know that the Vikings put out a feeler via NFL Network and Ian Rappaport saying, hey, look, they've got this potential tag and trade thing. You know, we'll see what teams come calling, which was them indirectly through the media begging for teams to call them. And whatever they learned in those calls led them to believe that it wasn't going to be worth it. And I think one of the only explanations that makes sense is that teams didn't want him on that deal. So it's got to be significantly less than that. And if you look at equivalents recently, Geno, Baker Mayfield, you know, guys that started out as not as dissatisfying, you know, franchise quarterbacks from their rookie deals who like went through a little bit of time with other teams, did the journeyman thing, and then emerged maybe a better starter. If Sam Darnold's the next one of those, he's going to make somewhere between 30 and 36 million. Here's the rub. I don't know what the Vikings are going to offer him, because what the Vikings need in him is so different than what other teams in free agency need. And here is the other rub. Sam Darnold's agent works for CAA. It's like the biggest agency in sports. So whether it's like tampering or not, that agent knows what quarterbacks are going to be making nowadays. And he knows what teams are going to be willing to offer to Sam Darnold. My guess is there is an offer on the table for Sam Darnold from the Minnesota Vikings. My other guess is that offer is not very good. The Vikings have done this with other players that they would love to keep. Oh my God, we love that guy. We would love to keep him in the building, but the price has got to be right. And then they go, but it's a business, right? Kirk Cousins was one of these. Daniil Hunter was one of these. They had an offer on the table for those guys, but it was lowball. And it was, this is your floor. Go forth and prosper in free agency. If nobody does better than this, you're welcome to come back and take it. And most of the time when you do that, somebody's going to do better. And if you didn't think someone was going to do better, you would sign that right then and there. So that's my guess. And if you think about it, the Vikings having some kind of, call it like 25 mil, right? Like a little bit below what you maybe are going to get for free agency. But if you think about Sam Darnold's future on the Vikings, if he does sign, say, a $25 million deal, there is a real world where he goes into training camp, loses the job to J.J. McCarthy, and becomes a $25 million backup. That feels a little risky, but it feels like way less than what Sam Darnold actually deserves on the market. That's what I've been saying this whole time. That it's ships passing in the night. It's two people in different situations. It's not you, it's me. We're better off as friends. We should probably just have fun. We're going in different directions in life. That's where it feels like it's headed. If you think about where he is for the New York Giants, he's competing with Drew Lock. Is he even still a Giant? Like, he has that job. That he is the starter, and you pay your starter $30 to $35 million. Okay, that feels fine. You pay your backup $30 to $35 million, or you pay a guy $30 million and then tell him he still has to win the job. It feels like you're not being very efficient with your resources. And that's not a far-fetched idea. in training camp before JJ McCarthy got hurt, we were kind of told it was Sam Darnold's job. And then it started getting hard. It started getting a little bit tougher for that assumption to be made. And if you ask like Kevin Seifert or Ben Gessling or Andrew Kramer, any of the people who were at camp every single day, they were like, yeah, it kind of was going to be a last minute decision. It actually was. Like JJ McCarthy was starting to take that job from Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold was playing well. So well, in fact, that it went all the way into the season. We saw what he did. He was playing that well in camp too, and JJ McCarthy was making a run at it. So another camp battle, I wouldn't guarantee that Sam Darnold wins that job. And if Sam Darnold is here, only if he is here on a $41 million franchise tag type amount, would I say, okay, yeah, he's going to be the starter. But if he signs for $25 million, there's a chance you got a $25 million backup. And that's probably the upper limit of what you would ever want to do. The Vikings, I think, are much more keen to give somebody like Daniel Jones $10 million. Then you maybe got a $10 million backup, which still feels a little bloated. But, competition, right? There's a chance he could be a starter, and that's what you're paying for. And you move on. You let Sam Darnold go get a comp pick. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about. If Sam Darnold does walk, the comp pick formula is giving a lot of people pause. And the difference, it was like a big point that people made when they were arguing to tag and trade. You definitely get a pick and you get it right now. Who's to say they're even going to get a pick next year? And if they do, they have to wait a year. What's the value like?